Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's workshop. So today I'll show you how I made my window wall, which was featured in my entrance hall video. So I purchased this housework window with several panes. I think it's about 24 panes in this window. Now, if you haven't seen the entrance hall video, I will leave a link in the description so you can be up to speed to where we are in the rooming house. Now, I used a piece of foam core to be the top header and the base of my window wall. Not sure what they're called architecturally, but you'll see what I mean in a moment, dolls. So I made sure that the floor and the wallpaper to the hallway ended right in that doorway outside of the double doors. And I cut a piece of foam core to fit right in it, not flush. It leaves a little space around the edges because the area is not absolutely square. So I will need to build it out some. And I do need to trim down the window so that it'll fit on top of the foam core piece. So before I get started with all of that, I do need to make some adjustments to the window to make it the same size as the foam core top and bottom. Now originally I was going to sit the window down a little lower, a little higher, but I realized that I wanted it to be where you could see into the hallway really well and see whatever or whoever was in the hallway area. So I do need to trim it down some, and I'm going to gently separate the ends of the window frame to make it fit the size I cut of foam core to create the top and the bottom of the wall. So I'm gently sawing apart or sawing loose the ends or the broadest part of the window frame. Now this video is sped up, but I was very gentle to make sure that I didn't break, splinter, or fracture those delicate window panes. And then I smoothed off the edges, and I actually did the same thing to the other side until the window actually fit my foam core pieces. Now, dolls, if you've been following me any length of time, you know I'm really not real big on measuring, but I do a lot of dry fitting to ensure my estimates are correct. Now here I am adding a layer of red chestnut. Now if you don't have actual wood stain, you can use shoe polish or watered down acrylic paint. Now dolls, I love to do multiple layers of stain, but I have a tendency to like the reddish or the deeper tones as the base color and then add the weathering tones on top. Now if you notice, you'll see me checking the size of the foam core against the size of the window pane multiple times before I go forward with my decorations. And here it is, so you can see the top and bottom to kind of give you an idea of what my window wall will look like. To deepen and weather the look of my windows before I sand and distress it, I'm adding a deep espresso stain to give it depth. Now dolls, although I didn't show it, this is the embossed brick paper that I'm using as my topper and bottom cover for my window wall in the music room or at the end of the hallway. I did use it on my fireplace, and I've chosen to cover my foam core pieces to make them look like brick. And I think they really turned out nice. Now another nice advantage of using foam core for your wall instead of wood sometime, the foam core is flexible and it will kind of compress and create tension between your walls, which really makes it easy to fit and adjust. And keep in mind, dolls, my dollhouse or the rooming house dollhouse is a vintage dollhouse. It's not square. The walls are not straight. Things are not plumb. So it really, really is forgiving using the foam core to fit it and adjust it into places where I want to add walls or change the configuration of the rooms. So let me go ahead and get some glass in this window. So I had a couple different options regarding glass or faux window glass for my music room window. Now I did have a piece of plexiglass, really thin plexiglass that I got in a crafter's bundle. And it's really nice. It's a really nice piece. And basically all you need to do is score it to actually fit it for a window or frame. You have to be very, very careful and very steady with your craft blade. I'm using like a box cutter and my speed square. After I got my general line on it, I began to score it over and over until it snapped. And it snapped pretty easily. It wasn't hard. And if you have small edges like this, I just used some little pliers to bend off the area that I wanted to break off. But the thing here, dolls, I must confess, I really don't like to measure. And I actually should have because I didn't have an additional piece if I messed up. So I actually cut it and peeled the glass or protective covering off of it and then realized that it was too small. So, word to the wise, when you're using something like this, there's really no way to fix it after you've cut it. So you have to be very, very precise in your cuts. Take your time. But in this case, I'm going to just have to save this piece of plexiglass for another project or a smaller window because I actually cut it too small. So after I realized that I cut my piece of plexiglass too small for my window, I went on with my fateful acetate. Now this is just a plain piece of acetate like the packaging that they have for croissants at some of the big box stores, and it looks absolutely fine. The plexiglass was great. It was bigger, it was a little heavier. It actually felt a little bit more authentic and realistic, but hey, the acetate is going to work today. Acetate is what I use in most of my furniture, so I don't feel bad at all, dolls. So I added a little Gorilla Gel super glue to the key places in the window to hold it tight in the corners, and then I added the acetate and allowed it to dry. Now I want you to take note, dolls, that although I don't like to measure, I do dry fit a lot. Dry fit, tri fit, whatever you want to call it. I do it over and over to make sure that before I put glue on something, it fits and works the way that I want it to. Possibly it would be better if I measured it more accurately, but this is just my way, dolls, and it works for me in the end just about every time. Now do take note that there are some spaces and gaps around the edges of the window in the brick, but those will be taken care of and satisfied when I get the wallpaper in and put the trim around the window. So no worries on that, dolls. Keep in mind whether your dollhouse is vintage or new construction. You may have to shim things or make alterations to make things fit. The cuts and the sizing is always perfect. You have to make it work. You are the artist. Now here's my window with the glass in. It's all framed in, and I'm just trying to adjust it in a way that I know it'll lay straight and it'll fit properly when I actually put in the bottom portion of my brick. And again, this is a dry fit, tri fit before I actually begin to add my glue. And see there, it all fits nice and neat, nice and straight. And I actually ended up going around to the other side to make sure I pushed it all the way up flush and that everything was solid. Now, dolls, I want you to take a good long look at this side, which will be the music room, before I do all the finishing. I want you to remember all the gaps and the spaces that you see, all the imperfections and scraps of paper from the wallpapering of the other rooms before I finish it. Now, this is the hallway on the other side. You can clearly see the spaces and the gaps around the top due to the unevenness of the walls or the fact that the walls are not straight. But when I'm done, dolls, you won't be able to tell. It will be a perfect optical illusion. Only a dollhouse autopsy will be able to tell what actually happened here. And I think it looks great. I'm really satisfied with the overall look. So now it's time for me to get to work on the actual decor of the music room. So I just want to give you an up-close look at the music room before I start to really get into the decoration. You see how I had to shim and add putty around the wall. I closed up a staircase and the ceiling. Really bad, messy job. There's a lot of unevenness to the wall and the ceiling, the coarseness and ruggedness to the walls and the floors. So I've got my work cut out for me to make this acceptable for my precious dolls. Oh, it looks like the dolls have already started. I know they're eager to have access to this space as well. So let me get to work, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of Little Gretchen's Workshop. Bye-bye now, dolls.